So you guys asked me to analyze some top CrossFit athletes, Olympic weightlifting technique. Thank you so much for recommendations. First athlete we got in this series is Guy, absolute lad of an Olympic lifter, an amazing CrossFit athlete. I think he trains out of Mayhem. I picked one of his snatch videos that I found on his Instagram to take a look at first of all. I'm just gonna go right from the start. I'm gonna tell you what I think of the technique, and hopefully there'll be some good points that you can take away here too. The first thing I want you to notice is that I would say that his setup position with his grip is quite narrow. It seems to work really well for him in his setup, but that's the first thing that I noticed. And also that you'll see here in particular, his toes are pointing straight ahead. Normally you'd see for quite a rangy lifter, turning the toes out a little bit at the start to help the bar track straight off the floor, but doesn't seem to affect him at all when he initiates his movement. As you progress through, one thing I want you to notice is that he's using a dynamic start position here. Now this is really difficult to execute consistently and get a good trajectory of the bar in the first phase of the lift, but he does it extremely well. You'll notice how he stays relaxed when he initiates the movement, and then he almost looks like he's yanking at the bar, but he maintains a really good angle of the back as he does this. Great facial expressions there as he pulls away. Bar stays super close here as it comes up to the knee, which is great, and you'll also see the angle of the back maintains exactly the same all the way until the bar gets to the knee. So you can see how these two yellow lines here are in line, which is great. It's exactly what you'd want to see. And especially if someone's using a dynamic start position, I'd still want to see that maintenance of a good angle of the back. As the bar gets to the knee height here, I'm sure you guys are going to pick up on this, but you'll see that there's a little bit of an arm bend going on. Again, for me, I don't think it's a huge issue for him. So what I'm noticing here, slight bend of the arms here, doesn't really keep them super relaxed, but he does keep the bar fairly close past the knee. One thing that I would notice though with this arm bend that's happening is he's managing to keep his shoulders over the bar really well, which is great. It's going to allow him to utilize his legs really well through this middle phase of the lift. You'll notice now when we get into mid-thigh, he's still maintaining flat feet, which is incredible. This is going to help him produce as much vertical force as possible through this middle phase of the lift. So as we progress on here, bar stays super close as it comes into the hip. His shoulders do get very slightly behind the bar as he's coming into extension. I have this same issue myself with my snatch, so again, it's not something that I'm worried about too much here because he does find a really good extension position. Like, look how straight his legs get here at the top. What I love as well is that his eyes are still pointing forward and he's really making the most out of his long legs, okay? I just want to put a line in here on the bar height, okay, that he gets to at the top of his pull. And I want you to notice how much further the bar travels as he transitions down underneath the bar, okay? So huge amount of lift on this bar, and it's reaching kind of maximal height as we get to around here, okay? This in itself tells me that there's a hell of a lot more weight that this lad can lift on a snatch, because you'd normally see these lines being a little bit closer through this middle phase of the lift, okay? Now, as he comes into his bottom position, watch how his feet move. So they start close, they move out into his receiving position, which you'll see kind of happening here. This is exactly what we want to see happening as we're transitioning into the bottom position of the snatch. It allows him to sit with his hips in between his ankles. Look how deep this lad's got in the bottom position. Absolutely incredible mobility whilst maintaining a good position with his knees and his feet in the bottom. Now you'll see a couple things. I'm just gonna keep the yellow lines on here while we're talking about this, but what you'll notice now is that the height in which he's actually receiving, oh, wrong line. The height in which he's actually receiving is below that top line, which is great. But obviously, as he gets closer to his sub-maximal lift, these lines will tend to closen, and that is a good indication on efficiency in the lift, which is absolutely incredible. One thing that you'll notice is as he receives the bar, he loses a little bit of balance, but he keeps the load in the legs to then stand up and out the bottom position. One thing that I want to just mention before we kind of finish up this review of a cracking lift is watch during the transition how close the bar stays to the body. Like, I use this cue sometimes. You got to think about picking the t-shirt up with your bar through the middle, and this is a perfect example of this. You can see how his top's coming up as he's picking up with the bar here through the middle phase of the lift, which is cracking. All in all, this is a great lift. The only things that I'd probably suggest is a bit of feedback and something to potentially help him. We'll just try and keep those arms hanging loose a little bit better as the bar coming past the knees, and just stay over for a little bit longer. So there'd be my two things that would help him. Again, probably lift another 5-10 kilos in this top position, but so far this guy's got his Olympic lifting on lockdown, and it's great to see such good technique happening in CrossFit.